Wherefore, Part 25. Elizabeth is dancing in her sleep. She is waving her leaves joyfully, and all her stems are shimmying in response to the music in the air. She cannot see where the music is coming from, but it bids her give all of herself, holding nothing back. She dreams the warm companionship of her fellow dancers, and in dreams she sees neighbours and strangers alike who are also dancing. She feels the deep love of connection with her kindred were-rhubarbs. This is a simple, powerful love grown from all that is shared in soil and moonlight. Sat on the bed, Badger Boy watches her smile in her sleep. He rejoices in the smiling, but he also feels the distance between them. She goes where he cannot follow. But then, he spends so much of his life in places she can never go. She will never know the passageways through hedges, or the snug underground sets full of kith and kin. The landscape beneath the bramble patches is unknown to her, and while she has put her nose to the ground a few times, she does not live in the realm of nose and ground, and is much poorer for that. He reflects that love is difficult sometimes. Love is challenging. It is time for him to go. The back door is always open for him, and he has left enough of his fur and footprints that she will know he was here. Badger Boy wanders out into the streets, damp with recent rain, between houses full of dreams. The night is crowded with human dreams, and they seem so close he half expects to run into them in person. As a consequence, he does not really take in the man with the massive horns, who is also not a man, but who is in some sense walking up the road. Badger Boy is unacquainted with Alfred and the Wherefore, so they pass each other with only the briefest acknowledgement. Humans are strange, and they have grown stranger since he was a cub. What will he do with the rest of this precious and perfect night? He might seek out Wigstan, although last time they talked Wigstan kept saying things about fecund valleys and water springing from new wells, and Badger Boy isn't sure he's ready for that sort of conversation again tonight. He stops for a beetle and to consider the similarities between eating someone and having a conversation with them. He does not torment the beetle by asking its opinion first. There is a small adventure with a bin that has rather a lot of cooked chicken in it. A cat swears at him from the top of a wall. Badger Boy gives it a few choice words about the ultimate futility of existence. Slightly aggressive philosophy is his current thing. Going down the lane where the foxes pee, he meets another badger. This one has a name that approximates to growl, growl, cough a bit. They talk about how busy the night feels and wonder why it is that some creatures are so busy doing things all the time and what they imagine it is for. Since embracing the meaninglessness of everything, I've been enjoying myself a lot more, Badger Boy admits. The older badger agrees with this approach. We can wonder why the beetle tastes so good, or we can snuffle about for the next one. Exactly, says Badger Boy. The town is dotted with small areas of woodland that remember older woodland only too well. Like all young badgers, he's been taught to tell the difference between paths. Always follow the badger paths is a charge that has been drummed into him ever since he could first toddle about. Leave the badger paths to forage, certainly, but the other paths are not for you. No matter how alluring they seem, do not walk them. Get it wrong and you will go into one wood and emerge from another, and sometimes there is no way back. You never know what else will be passing through the woods, so Badger Boy is always careful. There is moonlight in the woods. The air is rich with smells. The badger paths are easy to follow. Badger Boy feels more relaxed than usual. It is good being among the trees tonight. Safer than usual. Nothing could go wrong here. Nothing could be abroad, full of malice or hungry for the rich taste of badger flesh. The other paths glow faintly and seem so attractive. Walk us, they seem to say. Even in the moonlight, we are perfectly safe for you. He is a smart sort of badger and well taught. He hears the dangerous potential and he does not succumb to it. Still, it makes him alert to the state of the world and a little mistrustful of it. As a result of this, he pays more attention to the sounds than usual. A badger in a wood is not an inherently quiet creature at the best of times. A badger cheerfully doing his own things can make a lot of noise. enough to drown out a lot of other activity. As badgers are robust, this sardine proves fatal, so they tend to be careless about it. Mistrusting the wood, Badger Boy goes a little slower than usual, makes a bit less noise, and pays a lot more attention. Thanks to this, he knows there is something moving and does not just amble blithely into them. He pauses and thinks, considers the shape of this little wood and the locations of paths in it. There are cat paths, deer paths, many vole tunnels in the undergrowth, and the sound is not coming from any of these. It is definitely coming from the other path. That means either someone to warn and rescue or someone to avoid at all costs. Badger Boy stops very still and breathes as softly as he can. He is deep in a bramble and his dark fur will hide him so long as he does not move. His eyes might give him away, but only if he is sought after, and if he is sought, his best defence will be to run. There are two schools of thought when it comes to running, and an equal divide between badgers over which is best. Some badgers prefer to run towards threats and others run away. Usually Badger Boy runs towards, but as he keeps still under the bramble and watches, he thinks running away has some merit. He attempts to calm himself by thinking about philosophy. After all, if everything is meaningless, then perhaps the choice between running towards and running away is a largely aesthetic one. Perhaps it is a question of what looks best, or funniest, or most dramatic, or most elegant. Would he be better served by a choice of style rather than a philosophical position? Just because philosophy is currently more popular than personal style does not make it a higher truth. The figure on the other path is like nothing he has seen or smelled before. There is something of the plant about it. The shape is humanish, but the overwhelming impression is of otherness. It has come from beyond this wood, from beyond the woods Badger Boy knows. He can feel the otherness of it with his entire body, and running away battles with not moving a muscle as his best choices, philosophically and aesthetically. He stays and watches. It is leaf and mischief, love and lust, stem and seduction. It dances the path on feet that are not feet, and its heads of leaves are covered with lights, and it has one terrifying face and at the same time a dozen cheerful, harmless faces. And it is definitely a plant, and it is not a human, and it is a boy with a wicked smile, and it is possibly even a badger, and it is definitely safe to approach it. Even so, Badger Boy stays put. The allure of the otherworldly being is potent, but does not quite ring true. This is not what he really wants. Badger Boy thinks about Elizabeth, and he thinks about beetles and fat grubs. This is what he wants. Debating in the moonlight and climbing about under hedges. The being on the path is none of these things. It's just part of its nature to try and allure. It can be resisted. It passes by, and only after it has gone well past him does Badger Boy emerge. He goes slowly, quietly, and the being on the otherworldly path does not seem to notice him. He follows for a while, being careful not to put his paws on the other path. He sniffs at the air and ponders. Eventually the being emerges from the wood and into the town. It dances in the empty streets, and there seems to be intention in the dance. Every now and then it stops to plant a piece of itself in the garden of one human or another. Badger Boy understands now. He's seeing the spirit and intent of the were-rhubarb. It is enjoying itself immensely, whatever it is. There is joy and mayhem in its smell. It is a happy being. Badger Boy nods to himself because there are questions to ask about whether happiness and goodness are the same thing. He will have to talk to Wigstan about this, if the wizard can be persuaded to stop thinking about giants for a little while.